Let's see if that works. Can you all hear me now? Can you all hear me now? Can you all hear me?
We're working on it. Hold on. Keeps on wanting to jump back. There we go.
All right, excellent, excellent. Oh, wait, what? I did something. My fault. Okay, fixed it. All right.
There we go.
You seem to be working. Excellent. All right, so welcome one and all to the very first live response video. We don't normally do these. Usually let me explain to you guys why we're doing a live response video. That'll give more people time to come in, and then we'll get started, okay? So, here's what's going on, folks. So normally what I like to do is I like to do a response video by first watching the full video or reading the full article before I respond to make sure I understand everything that's going on. Then as I re-listen to it, I pause the video every now and then, think about what's said, and then I will type up a reaction or an explanation or some kind of response to what's being said. I analyze all that, make sure that all my points are correct, run it through Lark, run it through a few other people, make sure that I got all my sources correct, try to be as accurate as possible, and then I go forward. In this case, it's a little hard to do that, and here's why. Extra credits in this video is talking about Animal Farm by George Orwell, a very short but simple bestial fable written by George Orwell back in the 1940s as a critical response to Stalinism and the rise of communism in Soviet Russia. Now, here's the reason we're doing this live. The video itself, technically, they get the story mostly right. There are a few moments that they mess up, but they're not big deals. Normally, I'd overlook a video like this. I just go, they got it mostly right, move on. But there's something they do in this video that I think is egregious. I think that this is a terrible, terrible thing to do for anyone, regardless of what political spectrum you land on. So, before we get started, people are asking about what is Animal Farm. It's written by the same guy who did 1984. And it's essentially talking about what happened with communism as it rose in Russia and why it's a bad thing.
Okay, they're saying that the volume is still very low.
Is it? 1 second.
I mean, I could hear it on the phone.
I'm raising it as loud as I possibly can. You're hearing it fine, Lark. It's fine on your end. Y'all can't hear it? Seriously? How come we can hear it and they can't?
I have no idea.
Well, this is already starting off bad. Let's see. Let me see. I've got it as loud as I possibly can get it. I don't know what else I can do.
Let me see this real quick. Let's see.
That's for Mike right there. All right. Well, I guess we'll grab the other microphone then. It's up there on top of the DVD plate.
Or we can use the other one.
Well, I don't know if that'll be any better.
Let's just try this one.
Yeah, other people are saying they can hear. I don't know what's going on. All right, 1 second. We're going to replace everything. Let's see if this microphone works.
Did you save the changes?
Yeah, I did. It should be saved. We should be able to hear it in a second. Let's find out. Can we be heard now?
Let's see. Did you save the changes? Yep.
All right. So, y'all, does this sound better? Everyone hearing us okay now? Can we be heard now? Are we good? Guy says much better.
Okay.
Swabode says much better. Here we go. That's better. Sounds good. That's great. Yes, hearing good. Okay, everyone says that they can hear us now. Okay, and Lark, speak so that... Yeah, okay. You would. Louder but unnecessary. Hey, everyone, a lot of people were saying that they couldn't hear us, so we had to do something. Because even if you're fine, we want to make sure everyone is
half
good.
of people chatting saying we couldn't hear it, so we had to do something about it.
All right, well, let's take a seat, Lark. All right, so we've got our microphone working. We're ready to go ahead and get started. So, let's do it. This is the video, Animal Farm by George Orwell, so you haven't read. Actually, before we get started, one thing that I want to do. Let's...
Are you trying to pull chat up at the same time?
Yeah. Unless you can pull chat up on your phone.
I have it right up here.
All right, Lark will keep an eye on chat on his phone. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's do it. Uh-oh.
Are they muted?
Did we mute ourselves accidentally? What? Oh my gosh, the technical issues we're having today. All right, well, hold on. Well, that's why. Okay, we fixed it. We fixed it. All right, here we go.
As long as they can still hear us.
All right, here we go.
Literature gives us the opportunity to experience lives, perspectives, and worlds different from our own. Though remember, friend, a good story has many readings, and this is but one.
As I've said before, I really don't like that opening. The only reason I'm pausing, though, is so that we can make sure that Lark, can they hear the opening?
Pretty sure they was going through. I was just making sure we didn't get cut off, too.
No, we didn't get cut off. I was just making sure y'all can hear the desktop audio and our audio. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, now we can continue. We're ready now. Let's go, Lark.
Yeah.
Let's go.
The animals at Manor Farm are rejoicing in the success of their revolution, though you have some serious doubts that anything will get any better. Because if there's one thing you've learned, it's that life will go on as it always has, that is, badly. So you stay out of politics, even as the pigs take control of the farm, until they sell your horse friend to a glue factory. But now, is it too late? Benjamin the donkey may be cynical, but he's also one of the only animals that clearly sees what's happening in George Orwell's allegorical political novel, Animal Farm.
Actually, funny thing is, he says that Benjamin the donkey is one of the only animals that sees the problems going on Animal Farm. He's not. There are other animals that do, but Benjamin's one of the only ones who isn't openly punished for it because he doesn't speak out. Benjamin stays really quiet. He doesn't say anything. Like, for example, the horse spoke out. The horse, what was his name? I forget his name now. They'll say it. But he spoke out. The hens spoke out. There were other characters that spoke out, and some even committed suicide because they recognized the problems in Animal Farm. But Benjamin just kind of, he just went with the flow. He didn't care. Well, he cared, but he didn't want to say anything because that was another part of the critique of the farm. It's this idea that we shouldn't speak out. Like, we don't want to cause a ruckus. We don't want to cause problems.
I believe it was also like he was so cynical. He's like, yeah, I could complain, but nothing will change.
Exactly. All right, so let's keep going.
Now, Zoe and I can see that you're clearly not familiar with the book, which is perfectly fine, because we love to share this story with folks. Isn't that right, Bo?
At one point, I just want one of the guys, they just so randomly was like in the coffee shop, like, I just came to get my coffee, can I please leave?
Yeah, that is a good question. How does he always get these randos to just sit down and listen to him yabber on about a book? Do people just walk in and go, hey, I feel like finding a new good book. You got any good And who would ask this guy for recommendations?
No, that's why the cat's there. It's to lure them. Oh, cute, cool cat. Hey, have you read? Oh no, I'm trapped by societal convention. No,
I must pet the cat. Fine, tell me of your strange book. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
But up top, let's show this guy what our six
Box
legs
can
can do.
do. I forgot.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks so much to Factor for keeping us well fed fast. So you haven't read Animal Farm by George Orwell. Luckily, or unluckily for you really, it seems to always be the perfect time to check it out. While the original target of this satirical allegory was the Soviet Union, the central theme of how political propaganda can manipulate the opinion of the people is, sadly, evergreen. Oh boy. And
this is actually where we start to see some of the problem in this in this programming. You'll see it a lot more as we go through it. But here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and spoil the big secret. Extra Credits is trying to propose that George Orwell wrote Animal Farm to not only be a critique of Soviet Russia, but of all oppressive governments, most specifically American government. And this isn't quite true. While you technically could use the lessons of Animal Farm to apply to other governments, George Orwell said openly many times that he wanted this book to be a true critique of Stalinism, Joseph Stalin himself, and of Europe's direction post-World War II, because he's had a very bleak outlook for the European situation after World War II, because he saw the rise in Soviet Russia, he saw that Britain was too easily connecting itself with Russia, he didn't like the fact that the Britain intellectual market was praising Stalin, mostly because they had to, because they needed Soviet Russia on their side.
There were some that were unironically doing, because remember, Britain wasn't as big on the Red Scare
right,
as the
that's
US
true.
was.
But really, George Orwell he never said, oh yeah, this isn't just about Stalin. This is about all bad governments. But they're going to push constantly in this video. Extra Credits is going to push constantly. No. This is about any government. Why? You'll see why. Also, nice picture of Orwell. Not gonna lie.
Their character's pretty good there.
Yeah.
Orwell's clear, concise storytelling has helped generations of readers look more closely at the words of their own governments. Animal Farm structure eschews the concept of main character, focusing instead on how the story's events impact the whole population of farm animals. Furthermore, each character in Animal Farm serves as a symbol.
Yep.
For example, Napoleon, the brutal leader of the farm, represents Joseph Stalin, while Boxer, the self-sacrificing horse, stands for the Russian laborers.
Not quite. Actually, I wanted to double check this. I looked up the symbols. Boxer actually doesn't just represent the average laborer. He represented a specific laborer. What was his name? Hold on. I'm going to look it up real fast. Sorry, I know that I'm... Boxer... Oh, wait, no, let's just look up Animal Farm. That'll make it easier. Animal Farm, you can go to the Wikipedia and go down to characters, equines, a specific... Boxer, a loyal, kind, dedicated, extremely strong... Okay, but Boxer's immense strength repels the attack when the pace... Boxer has been compared to Alexei Stakhanov, who was leader of the Stakhanov movement. So he wasn't just the workers at large. He was actually a specific worker who started a huge movement. So regardless of that, nitpicking aside...
argue you could be like head of the labor unions.
You could argue that, but...
Which is what Soviets were.
Right. It's a nitpick, but it's something I wanted to point out. So let's backtrack a little bit.
Each character in Animal Farm serves as a symbol. For example, Napoleon, the brutal leader of the farm, represents Joseph Stalin, while Boxer, the self-sacrificing horse, stands for the Russian laborers. And while each species of animals illustrates a different group of humans, Orwell's sympathy is clearly with the oppressed animals, only a few of whom survive till the end. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. You are Benjamin, an old...
So let it be known to everybody, if you spend too much time talking to Extra Credits, you too will turn into an ass.
It's true, though.
I feel like that's
that is
Freedom Tunes Jordan Peterson impression right there. If you spend too much time working with Extra Credits, what happens? Well, obviously you turn into an ass.
The fact is that if you spend enough time talking to people who feel that they're higher than you on the moral and intellectual plane, eventually they will expose themselves and yourself as the intellectual jackass of the room. It's just the way it goes, man. Like... Excuse us for our bad Jordan Peterson impersonations. But I do think that this is hilarious. They're making the listener the donkey. Let me tell you why this is weird on two levels. Number one, he said it himself. The story is not about main characters. It's basically just telling the story of Animal Farm. But the second thing I think is funny about this is he's once again deliberately pushing the listener into the story as a character. Which I don't mind, except he has done stories where he doesn't do that, such as Beloved, where he did not insert someone as the main character. So he picks and chooses when he stays consistent to this style of telling stories. It doesn't work, because if you want to say, look, we want to insert you into the story so you understand it better, okay, that's fine, but do it for all your stories or don't do it. This feels very inconsistent, especially when you're doing it with a story that doesn't need a main character. You should treat this story like you did Beloved and not have a main character. Just have the dude listen. But regardless of that, joke about being a jackass out of the side. All right, what's everyone in chat say about that right now?
Sushi was mad at me because she was about to type that joke.
Yep.
And I beat him to it.
Interesting. All right, well, let's keep going. Backtrack just a little bit.
The beginning. You are Benjamin, an old, cynical donkey. And if life at Manor Farm has taught you anything, it's that life is pretty awful. Oh, sure, I mean, you have some friends, including your BFF Boxer the Workhorse, but everyone knows you're always just on the cusp of going full Eeyore. So when a pig named Old Major summons all of the farm animals to the big barn to share a vision of a better future, you're pretty doubtful. Old Major explains how the humans have been exploiting the animals, and that if they could only just stand united, they could overthrow their farmer. Now, Old Major...
So Old Major was a symbol for Karl Marx or possibly Vladimir Lenin. Could honestly be argued for both.
Kind of considering the fact this is supposed to be about the Russian Revolution, Lenin probably would make the most sense. But
it could be either, really. Either one would work, because Marx was the one who proposed the idea of communism. Lenin was the one who pushed for the revolution. But it could work either way, just pointing that out.
dies shortly thereafter, but his words inspire a trio of his fellow pigs, Napoleon, Snowball, and Squealer, to take up his mantle and devise a new philosophy called animalism. There are 7 major tenets of this new ideology, mostly aimed at uniting the animals and avoiding the failings of human.
I want to talk for just a moment about these 7 rules. I know that it probably wasn't entirely intentional, but it does kind of pay homage to the 10 Commandments. Because the first 2 are clear-cut rules about deity. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Clearly setting up what is good. Then saying the no's, like do not do this, like no animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep into a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and then ends with all animals are equal. I just think that's funny. Something about the book. I'm not talking about EC.
Yeah, for me, when I'm seeing like the first one, whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy, I immediately think back to Plato and Diogenes talking about a featherless biped is a man, and so he comes in with a plucked chicken. Behold, a man.
It's one of those things. All right, but one thing that you might have noticed. Why did I pause the video to mention that the older pig, Old Major, was possibly Marx or Lenin? Because you'll notice that despite them admitting that this book is full of symbols, they don't talk about them much. You notice that? They rarely mention who's symbolic of what. Like, they mention that Boxer is possibly representative of the laborers, and that Napoleon is representative of Stalin, but those are the only 2 they really mention. The rest they kind of gloss over. And the reason why ties back to what I said before. Their goal is to say, no, this isn't just about Stalin and Soviet Russia, it's about all governments. So again, they want to avoid talking about the symbolism so that they can push their narrative. And you'll see that by the end. I promise, by the end of this video, we're going to show it plain as day. They overtip their hand in a huge way.
You know, it's kind of funny, though, when you think about it, because remember when they were doing The Hobbit and Tolkien, they tried to force allegory where there wasn't, because they really wanted to force a message. And here they're trying to sort of tone down the allegory again to put out their message.
Or when they did Beloved and said that they wanted to skip over the climax so that we could draw our own conclusions. They pick and choose when they want to be consistent. Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep going.
That's nice words, but when have words ever changed the revolution happened? Geez, that was fast. The pigs then try to teach the rest of the animals how to read, but only a few are able, including yourself. In fact, many of the animals are actually having a hard time grasping the several central tenets of animalism. So to make things easier, Squealer reduces the whole philosophy to 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. The sheep in particular like to go around shouting this all day, in fact. Also, the pigs themselves are having a bit of a power struggle. Snowball, a well-respected hero for his work defending the farm, has committed himself to truly involving all of the animals in governing this place. On the other hand, you have Napoleon, who is focused on consolidating power for himself. This comes to a head at a meeting to discuss Snowball's plan to construct a windmill. Napoleon opposes this plan for some reason, though he doesn't really have much of an argument against it, and just as the animals start to seem overwhelmingly in favor of Snowball, Napoleon summons 9 huge dogs who chase his rival off the farm for good.
Okay, so a couple things. Again, he's not bringing up the symbolism. The Snowball, the pig, the good one, is supposed to be symbolic of Trotsky.
Yeah, I think they'll bring
they might mention that.
They do mention Trotsky, or whatever they do.
But one thing that's interesting is the dogs that came out of nowhere. There was actually precedent for that in the book. It was said that after they chased off the farmer, there were a bunch of puppies that were found. Napoleon took them under his wing and adopted them and raised them, but indoctrinated them to be his security force. They became his secret police. So the dogs in this represent
basically the secret police of the Russian government, basically the strong arm of the military, the strong arm of the government. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And the dogs become very important throughout the story. But.
Yeah, and another thing to important is this is actually where we get a little bit of the author making a little bit of a hopeful historical inaccuracies.
Yeah, tell them about this, Lark.
Because the thing is, a lot of people, and Orwell included, sort of had this mythical notion about Trotsky that, oh man, if only, because he was the one who was supposed to take over after Lenin died.
Right.
He was the chosen one, but the thing is, Stalin was in a position to actually sort of like put people in power, and he grew his own power base relatively successfully. Trotsky had this problem of alienating just about everybody.
Right, and also it didn't help that during rallies, Stalin would rile up the crowd to speak over Trotsky.
It was, not to mention, Trotsky made several mistakes during the Russo-Polish War, and Stalin came out looking better because of that.
Well, Stalin was an old soldier, he's gonna look better.
Well, he's actually a younger soldier than Trotsky. So
I meant like he'd seen combat. He was a war hero.
Well, Trotsky organized. He led the Red Army during the Revolution.
Oh, that's true.
That is true. But the problem with Trotsky, though, was he was always so focused on the political message, he didn't understand like running the crowd quite as effectively as. Like, Stalin was just in the key position to do what he needed to do. And so when it was time to decide who was the new leader, Stalin had the power base and Trotsky didn't.
Right.
And and because of that, every socialist that looks on the Soviet Union is like, yeah, man, if Trotsky had just taken over, it would have been so much better. Alternate History Hub has a great video on it. I think it actually has two. But thing is, Trotsky's biggest complaint about Stalin when he was writing about him in exile before he got the old ice pick to the brain, I would have done it better. Literally, it's like, yeah, this monstrous thing he's doing is bad, but I would have done the same thing. But it would have been okay when I did it.
But you need to realize that, and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the audience. What you need to realize is that George Orwell was a democratic socialist. He believed in socialist ideals, so he thought Trotsky was awesome. So he was very much in favor of Trotsky, which is why he paints him as Snowball. But anyway, overall, so far so good in chat?
So far good. Yeah. It looks like we're good. They want to bring it like the dogs are probably representative of the NKVD, and
that's probably a good guess.
Secret police, baby.
All right, let's keep going. We just had Snowball chased off.
Who chase his rival off the farm for good. Napoleon then proclaims that the pigs will be making all of the decisions from now on. And his first decision is to build a windmill. Squealer explains that Napoleon only pretended to be against this idea to trick Snowball into revealing criminal intent. And while that sounds unlikely, why would Squealer lie about something like that?
Okay.
Politicians lie?
I'm not going to talk about this yet, but remember this part for later. We will come back to it. We will come back to this.
Must be true, I guess. Though eventually, Squealer just blatantly rewrites the history of the revolution, recasting Snowball as a traitorous villain. Now, you, of course, remember the truth, but decide not to get involved. You don't believe it would make any difference. Everything's just going to keep being awful, no matter what.
Considering
Boy,
Russian
you're
history,
just
not
as cynical as...
All right, well, let's hear what he has to say next, because this is the part of the video where he takes a break from the story to give more context.
Everything's
So
just
let's hear what
going
he
to
says.
keep being awful, no matter what. Boy, you are just as cynical as, well, author George Orwell. In fact, his friends sometimes called him Donkey George. Orwell was born Eric Arthur Blair, an Englishman in British India in 1903. And as a young adult, he received a post as a police officer in British-controlled Burma, where he witnessed abuse of the indigenous population firsthand. His initial forays into writing were based on these first-hand accounts of imperial English racism and corruption, and his future work.
What if you were a major?
Well, let's get through the ad, and because they've got to play their stupid ads, and then we'll talk about.
You can mute the ad while we.
Yeah, let's mute this ad while it plays through.
The real thing is, like, Animal Farm had nothing to do with British imperialism, did it? Like, at least in your research on it.
No, it had nothing to do with British imperialism. What he's talking about, he's not talking about Animal Farm right now. He's talking about his earliest essays.
Yeah, I understand that, but why bring that up right now?
Well, again, it ties into his goal with this story. His goal with this story is not to talk about Animal Farm being critical of Stalinist Russia. He's talking about George Orwell being critical of all government. So again, you'll notice this. He keeps dodging the symbolism, avoiding talking about the symbolism of Animal Farm and the goal of Animal Farm to focus more on, no, he was talking about British imperialism and American conservatism. And he's talking about all these other things too. So you'll notice, even in this visual that he's showing, it's so ironic what he's showing.
I know, but it just seems to me like if you want to talk about those earlier essays, maybe you should give them their own video. It would be like when you're doing any of your Shakespeare episodes, you say, well, before we can tell you more about Othello, I'm going to tell you about Titus Andronicus, because that was Shakespeare's first play.
Right, but
it's
clear he's trying to dodge the point. And I also, did you notice that the color of the bad guys in this is red and the color of the good guys is blue? I don't suppose.
Subtle symbolism.
Such subtlety in their symbolism.
We'll get to, but then you might be going, like, it's just a little nitpicky. Trust me, it'll get worse.
Yeah, I know something horrible.
And Hannah's mocking us for not having ad blocker.
Has anyone, well, I have to live off of ads when you watch my videos too, so I get it.
Hannah's just being cheeky.
Well, has anyone told us we're nitpicky yet?
No.
Okay, making sure. Because I'm like, wait, it gets better.
Continued to explore themes of oppression and inequity. A socialist influenced by Trotsky,
There it
on
is.
whom he based Snowball,
There we go.
Orwell
There we
watched
go.
with dismay, as the ideals of the Russian Revolution were perverted in such a way that Tsarists, one corrupt group of oligarchs, was simply replaced by the Politburo, another equally corrupt group of oligarchs. Since Orwell believed that
Aha! Hey, guys. Interesting. In this book about Stalinist Russia and all its evils, interesting we have an American podium with a guy with a hairstyle that resembles a certain Orange Man bad. Don't you think? Yeah, you're starting to see the direction they're trying to lead
And
this.
I love the yelling, like, it's us versus them. Yes, because only authoritarians and only bad political parties have ever done that before. Trying to rally your base against the opposition is a very common political tactic.
In fact, that's exactly what this video is doing. It is trying to rally the audience it has versus the bad guys. Whoever you, like, whether you want to paint the pigs as Stalin or Trump or whoever, you're still telling us to not like them. So either way, you're just as guilty of this.
Yeah, and another thing's like, listen, even if you go back to the optimates and populares of the Roman Republic, they were, guess what both of each sides were arguing? It's us versus them.
That's been the political argument for centuries. Anyway, anyone else in chat agreeing, or are they still saying they're skeptical?
They're going like, oh gosh, they brought the Orange Man!
Oh, it gets better. Guys, I swear, we still haven't seen the full subtlety of EC yet.
Oh gosh, James Jorgensen put it personally. You see, I have drawn you as the loaded and irrational evil, therefore I am right.
Exactly!
Don't get rid of it, James. It was a good comment. You did good there.
It was a good comment. But let's keep going. It gets worse. Here we go.
oligarchs. Since Orwell believed that political language was used deliberately to deceive and mislead the people, he worked hard to make his own language choices as straightforward as possible. Furthermore, he chose to write Animal Farm as a fable, both to make it more accessible, but also to suggest that his allegory wasn't just about Soviet Russia.
I looked this up. I dove through several letters and interviews Orwell had. Not once did he say this was about all political issues or all corrupt governments. He said openly, specifically, that he wanted to criticize Stalin. He said it blatantly, so that is actually inaccurate.
He also was very specific that he wasn't referring to just government. I mean, he was, but he was referring to revolutions. And the idea that the revolution, unless you have a strong, educated populace that is paying attention, it will go south. And the thing is, it's not just the Russian Revolution. If you look at the French Revolution, it went south relatively quickly. Look at the Reign of Terror. So this isn't just he's telling us it's not us versus them. It's us against the authority. Listen, those authoritarians rose to power in a very specific way.
Well, keep in mind. Go ahead.
And as they themselves point out, they got rid of one authoritarian group, and then they themselves became the authoritarian group. And with complete tone deafness, they are now bashing what they consider to be an authoritarian president that is now out of power.
Well, we'll come back to that. We're not done with that yet. But my point is, think about this for a second. When he published Animal Farm, most publishing houses didn't want to take it, and it sold poorly at first because at the time period that he wrote it, people were still pro-Stalin. A lot of people were still pro-Stalin. It sold very poorly in American and British houses at first because people hadn't seen the problems with Stalin yet and didn't want to sell these things. The reality was he was one of the few people who were openly trying to say Stalin's a piece of crap. And that's why he was so adamant about saying, I want this book to be, as you said, easily accessible, easily understood, easy to digest, but clearly against a specific enemy. In fact, funny enough, extra credits, you pointed this out. You said at the beginning that the Napoleon pig was based off Stalin, not Trump, not any king or oligarch, Stalin. Why would he make it specifically Stalin if it was meant to represent all political power structures? Oh, my goodness. And then, of course, Uncle Sam, I want you to act against your own self-interest. Why do you... Moving on.
For he'd seen plenty of evidence of political propaganda leading people to act against their own self-interests around the world, which is sadly exactly what's occurring on your farm. You watch as your rations dwindle over time, but then hear Squealer report that the rations are increasing. You then note that...
Oh, wait, so a sudden reduction of resources, and the powers that be say that's not true, that's not accurate, we are getting more resources? Gee, I wonder where I've heard that before.
The pigs have started to break some of the rules of animalism, but Squealer convinces everyone that the pigs deserve special treatment. And whenever things go especially bad, Squealer reports that it's not because of Napoleon's gross mismanagement. Oh, heavens no. It's actually because Snowball is sabotaging the farm. And when some...
Wait, so, hold on. It's not the current leader in power's mistakes that are leading to these problems. It's the guy who's no longer in power. He's the one at fault. He's somehow still the big bad boogeyman, even though he's no longer in power. Gee, that is the way that our political government had worked under Trump, didn't it? That's what Trump always did, right? He was the one who did, or am I mistaken?
Pretty much every single president in the past 100 years has blamed the last guy for something.
All right, let's keep going.
Some of the animals protest the hypocrisy. Napoleon simply releases the dogs on them, killing a chunk of the population. You then note that some of the rules painted on the barn of animalism have now been altered in the pig's favor, though the other animals again assume that it's just their own faulty memory, even when they catch Squealer in the act of adding some new words to the tenets. Then one day, Boxer the horse, who has worked harder than anyone else in support of animalism.
We just got a $5 super chat from Scoot Meister. Says, seeing this just hurts. I loved EC back in the day. Same here, man. Anyone see their Sengoku series? Their Seminal Tragedy or Otto von Bismarck one? Jeez. Thanks for the super chat. And yeah, man, I used to really love Extra History back in the day.
Yep, Extra History was awesome. We loved it. They did a lot of great videos. Now they have just become so politicized. And guys... It's so bad.
Because they're old stuff. I will still today use them in my classroom. I will actually show my students them.
The old stuff.
Yeah, the old stuff primarily. When I taught world history, the Roman stuff, the Sengoku Jidai stuff, it was very good. But since they got the new guy and the original narrator left, it's just gone downhill.
Let's keep going. We're almost done.
Act of adding some new words to the tenets. Then one day, Boxer the horse, who has worked harder than anyone else in support of animalism, collapses. The pigs report he's been sent to a doctor. But you watch in horror.
That's actually not entirely true. What actually happened was Boxer called out the problems that he was seeing, and the dogs were sicked on him, but he fought off the dogs. He was strong enough to fight back against the dogs and injure a few. Napoleon realized some of the workers, in this case Boxer, might rebel if they realize that they're strong enough to fight back, so he needed to do something about it. So when Boxer was injured, when he did fall, when he did get hurt, they shipped him to a glue factory to get rid of him, to set an example, to basically say, there went your strongest force, which is what they did with the character that he's based on, actually. So, something I wanted to add there.
But the glue factory
as
can
the
also
truck
mean
that is
Siberia.
clearly labeled Glue Factory takes him away. You cry out to warn him, but it's too late. Your friend is gone. Later, Squealer insists that Boxer died peacefully in the hospital, but you know the truth. You become, if anything, even more cynical, which turns out to be completely justified, as one day, all of the animals look on in horror, as Squealer and Napoleon come walking in on 2 legs and wearing clothes. The sheep start bleating a new phrase, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And the 7 rules have been replaced with the phrase, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
This is probably the most haunting phrase in all the story. And once we're done exposing their idiocy, because we're going to get to it in just a second, I will explain why. How are we doing on chat so far?
Doing pretty good.
All right. Here it comes, guys. You ready?
And the pigs now look exactly like the humans. You were right all along. Things have continued to go on as they always had. Badly. By using anthropomorphized animals as the main characters, Orwell created a universal look at the power of propaganda. The animals lose everything they'd gained in the revolution because they trusted the pig's sweet word.
Yeah. There it is. There it is. Make the farm great again. If you could not tell by our obvious pointing it out, their whole goal was to try to portray George Orwell's Animal Farm as not just a jab at communist Russia, but at Trump's America. All of it is a jab at Donald J. Trump as president. Now, here's what I find so funny, and Lark, you can correct me if I get any of this wrong, but I think I'm pretty accurate on this.
Go ahead.
All right, so first we're going to go backtrack. I told you I'd go back to this, so we're going to go back to it now. Okay, this part.
To build a windmill.
So you'll remember that at the beginning, Snowball wanted to build a windmill. After he's chased off, Napoleon proposes the same thing and is explained.
Squealer explains that Napoleon only pretended to be against this idea to trick Snowball into revealing criminal intent.
You will remember that there were certain policies Trump supported or enacted that were hated, but were also proposed and enacted by other people. For example, the famous Muslim ban. It was actually proposed under Obama initially. Trump kept it going, and people accused Trump of it, not Obama. Then there was the vaccine issue that we have now. Trump was actually the one in charge when the vaccine was being developed. And the big touting line from the media while he was in power was, no, we don't need a vaccine yet. We need more time on it. We need more time. You're just trying to push something to make money. And then he leaves office. What is everyone doing? Take the jab, take the jab, take the jab, take the jab. That's the first point that I want to make. The obvious saying, oh, no, we don't like it when he does it, but when we do it, yeah, we only ignored it at first because it was necessary. That was the first point. The second one is this part. When we see that Squealer is now trying to rewrite history to say that the person who came before is bad. Lark, as a history teacher, what is it that you see a lot that scares you when it comes to revisionist history in classrooms and in books and in the way we teach things? Is it not the goal of a certain political group, of a certain political persuasion, to try to make history out to be what they want it? Painting certain founding fathers and certain people as, what was it called? What was it called when I was a sub? Oh, yeah, old dead white men.
Yeah, and this isn't just like the rewriting of history here. Like this can even be looked in the political reference, but not in the way they want. For example, I recall very much so like the idea like when they were talking about rations. It's like
we'll get to that. Okay,
we'll get to the ration later. But like for one example, like gas prices. I remember a few years ago, gas prices were relatively, at least where we live in South Carolina. Some were asking earlier, were pretty reasonable. They were about $2. Then, after the nonsense and after the election, it got spiked up because the Keystone Pipeline was killed. We canceled fracking, and we started doing all sorts of things and we were having to rely on foreign imports again. And then the foreign imports sort of got cut off thanks to the Ukrainian nonsense and some of Biden's meddling. However, it's nobody's their fault. It was some people. I unironically saw them try and blame it on Trump, even though he was no longer in office.
And then if we move forward a little bit more, we get to the part where here he has Trump unironically proposed as the big loud bad guy. Uncle Sam is the one telling you to go against your own self-interest. Then there's this part, said we'd get back to it, the rations bit. We see that on Animal Farm, the food supply is running out, and their explanation, no. It's actually all there. We've got plenty of food. You're just not seeing it. With this new inflation issue going on, what has the certain political party that I'm not going to say been saying? We've just got to change the definition of inflation. You don't know what an inflation is. Okay, we are not, from a certain perspective, we're not actually in an inflation. The gas price, just buy an electric car. Okay, it's not that big a deal. In fact, in some ways, it's a good thing because it's going to wake you up to realize why we don't need gas.
Yeah,
in the first place.
I remember saying it's why inflation is a good thing. I was like, are you an idiot?
Then we see the obvious hypocrisy proposed in this scene.
You then note that the pigs have started to break some of the rules of animalism, but Squealer convinces everyone that the pigs deserve special treatment. And
oh gosh, it's not like I haven't heard that one before. What about that incident where the governor of Florida tries to send Mexican refugees and folks who came in, illegal immigrants, over to their neck of the woods? Martha's Vineyard. And what did they say to that? You can't send them here. We don't deserve that.
Literally, well, the Speaker of the House at the time said they need to be back there in Florida picking crops.
Yeah, so special treatment for us, not for you. You have to deal with the things we don't want to have to deal with. But let's keep going. And then there's this part, rewriting laws to suit their own interests. How many, and this isn't just the left, the right does this too. Rewriting laws to try to suit political interests. That happens across the political spectrum.
Just like rewriting rules and stuff, like with Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. And like he actually had to come out. It's like the thing is with the problem with the Twitter conspiracy theories is that there wasn't one that turned out to be false.
Correct. And then the last one: all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. You know, when I first read the book, do you know what the first thought that came into my mind was when I read that? I'll give you a little hint. It's something that happens in colleges far too often.
Oh, I couldn't possibly say.
Affirmative action. Think about it. Affirmative action, for those of you who don't know, basically it is ways that colleges and even some jobs try to control who comes in and who doesn't by saying we need a certain diversity quota. So what they do is they raise the bar for whites and Asians, lower the bar.
Well, actually, no. They keep the white one stable. They raise it for Asians and they lower it for everybody else.
Basically making it so that it's easier for people of certain backgrounds or ethnicities or even genders to get into colleges, and making it harder for others. Again, all animals are equal. We believe in equality. We're all equal. But, some are more equal than others.
But if you look back to, like, politics and stuff, like, we also have, like, a whole class of celebrities and politicians that will preach dogma at us one moment, and then they live a lifestyle that is completely in contradiction to it. Like, they tell us all the time, hey, we got to start taking care of the environment. We got to really think about our carbon footprint. You're like, okay, maybe so. What are you going to do this weekend? Me, I'm going to fly my private jet to my private island so I can go around on my private yacht. That sounds like it's going to burn a lot of CO2. No. You live in the mud hut. I get to live in the mansion. I need you to lessen your carbon footprint so I can continue to have my massive one.
And then, of course, they left this out in their summary of the book, but there were actually moments in the book Animal Farm where the pig said, hens, no one will ever take your eggs again. You'll be allowed to keep your eggs. And cows, no one will ever take your milk again. You get to keep your milk. And what do the pigs do over time? They start taking the hens' eggs from them, saying we need them to pay for goods. When the hens revolt, they starve them out and sick the dogs on a few of them. And then with the cows, they took their milk and mixed it in their own mash to eat to make it tasty, but didn't share with any of the other animals. What would we call that? Maybe the rising of taxes, you could call it. Or maybe you could just call it the exploitation of certain peoples to get what you want. You could call it, you could say, like, look, we need you to help pay for the, like, I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get banned off YouTube. But the fact is, what I find so hilarious about all this is that their big line, their big moment was to bash on Trump with this. To basically say, make the farm great again. To make it look like these two are supposed to represent conservatives, represent Trump's America. Look, this has nothing to do with Trump. Whether you like Trump or whether you hate Trump is irrelevant to this point. You are trying to, first of all, you're trying to misrepresent what George Orwell was trying to say. You're trying to turn this allegory that even I could understand when I was in middle school and I read it, and you are trying to make it into a political position that you can argue today. The ironic thing is, though, if I was to take Animal Farm and apply it to today, it wouldn't be Trump I was comparing the pigs to.
Well, yeah, and here's another thing. The whole idea of Trump and conservatism would not make sense in the context of Animal Farm and its story, particularly if you consider it's an allegorical one. Let's say you somehow divorce it from the Russian Revolution. The actions that Trump has taken, he wouldn't, if you want to make him an authoritarian figure in the story, he would have been he and the conservatives would have been the farmers.
Yep.
Keep in mind, the Tsarist regime in Russia was very much a conservative one, and it got replaced by a socialist communist one, which is far more left-wing. Still authoritarian, but it's left-wing. You traded, and that's basically the whole point. You traded one evil for another.
And that's the whole point. The pigs became just as bad, if not worse, than the farmers.
And the thing is, in this case, it's like, okay, Trump, let's say, Napoleon is Trump. Thank you, extra credits. Are you saying that Obama was the farmer?
Yep.
Are you saying that Obama was an evil czarist regime? If you want to follow this home all the way, it does not make you look good.
What's chat saying? Are we getting hate right now? Or are we good?
So far I think most people are agreeing.
Look, here's the thing. I want to make this clear. We're not here to defend Trump. We're here to point out the bias. We're here to point out that what they've done with this story on extra credits, it is the biggest and most blatant form of bias I've ever seen. But here's the problem, guys. They got the basics of the story completely right. They told the story of Animal Farm very well, objectively, but it is very clear what they're trying to do. They're avoiding talking about symbolism. They're avoiding talking about themes. They're trying their hardest to twist it so that they're saying, no, George Orwell, he wasn't just talking about Stalinist Russia. He was talking about lots of other things. In fact, maybe he was talking about Trump because we're going to throw his little tagline on Napoleon there. They are so desperate to make Animal Farm out to be anti-Trump, anti-everything, that they even paint the colors to look. What's the color behind the pigs right now? Red, the red wave, the red party. That's what they're trying to do. It's so blatantly obvious what they're trying to do. And that's really the reason I wanted to respond to this, but I didn't know how until I thought, let's just do a live stream of it. Because it would be so difficult for me to break down this in a plain old video. I needed, time. I needed to just hash this out vocally.
Well, another thing they could have done is, they could have, if they had made references to both sides of the political argument, I would have been far less irritated. It's like, okay, because you could have made this a very poignant effort to talk about, because since you wanted to bring up propaganda, you could have pointed out, and lest you think you're immune to propaganda, both sides do this, and they do it well. And you could have shown examples from both sides. You could have shown stuff that, misinformation that came out during Trump's administration. You could have shown misinformation that came out from Biden's administration. You could have shown that both are just as prone to mislead people as the other, because politicians lie. It's on both sides.
Exactly.
So you could have made this a sort of unified point, like, you need to be educated and you need to be smart. But no, when they say you need to be educated, you need to be smart, and they're going to say it later, it's like, so you don't become a sheep. What they're basically saying is, don't be a sheep that bleats for the other side. Bleat for my side.
Well, let's keep going. We'll wrap this up.
Because they trusted the pig's sweet words over their malicious actions. But the good news for us is that reading books on how the powerful manipulate us is an excellent way of starting to think critically about the propaganda that would-be autocrats present. So since I think it's safe to say that none of us want to be sheep mindlessly bleeding out talking points,
there's another one.
Yeah, the Fox told us, Fox News. It's hilarious. No, you want to know why I know this is? This is why that's hilarious. What he just said there, if you couldn't hear it, was, since none of us want to be the sheep bleeding what we're told, extra credits, you are the sheep. You're one of the worst sheep because you have a podium with which to bleat from, and you are bleeding everything they want you to say. You are literally saying with this video, a video about Animal Farm, a video about Stalinist Russia, a video about the evils of communism, and you are taking it to bleat the dogma, Orange Man bad. That is what you have been doing since day one of his inception in office, and even with the man gone, you will continue to bleat that phrase, Orange Man bad. Yeah, it's the only thing you know to do. If it's not Trump you're demonizing, it's the red wave. If it's not the red wave, it's Fox News.
Or it's, dare I say, Snowball.
Snowball. Yeah, literally, go back to this. Who is this? When he goes over to fix this, when he goes over to rewrite this image, is that really what Trump's party did? Or was it what Biden and his constituents have done to Trump even when he's gone? The man was banned from Twitter. The man has been removed from every political office. The man had literally, and still has literally, no political power anymore, and yet they will still tout that he is the big bad boogeyman. And why do I know this? Because you won't shut up about it. Extra credits. You tell us that we shouldn't be the sheep, that we shouldn't bleat the same dogma, but you're the one bleeding it. You're the one screaming this propaganda from the rooftops.
This is basically, it's just like we are so brave for spouting out what the mainstream already agrees with. I mean, the whole point of this was say, like, hey, just because these people in power, they're going to use powerful propaganda tools to try and manipulate you into letting them get away with literal murder. And you are now attacking someone who is out of power. If this was made during Trump's presidency, it at least would have had that going for it. But no, they're doing it under a new president, and they're still trying to point at the old guy that's no longer in power.
You know, the funny thing is, it would have been just so easy to just talk about this video, talk about this book, Animal Farm, and address it from a objective standpoint. Say, Animal Farm was written in 1940. You know, I don't even think they said when it was written, but it was written in 1946, written about Stalinist Russia, written as a critique of Stalin and his practices, written by George Orwell, who hated Stalin and hated Soviet Russia because he himself was a socialist who supported Trotsky, and it would have been fine. You don't have to say whether you support Stalin or communism or anything like that. You don't have to say whether you like Stalin. You don't have to say whether you like our current government or the old current government. You don't have to say any of it. Just say it like a teacher would. Explain, this is what Animal Farm is. Here's what it says. Here are the symbols. You're done. I would have said, great job. You did it. Good job. Excellent work. But that's not what you did, extra credits. That's not what you did. You took the story, did your best to avoid the obvious symbolism, did your best to avoid the obvious motivations of the author, and did everything you could to paint it as orange man bad. Did your best to paint it as red man bad. Did your best to... That one sounded bad. Did your best to paint it as conservatives, Republicans, right-wingers, Fox News, all of it bad. And you say that we're the ones who bleed it? You say that Fox News is the one to bleed it? No, dude. This is your channel. Bleeding it from the rooftops.
It's just like when Dave Harbour and his whole gang accepted that award with, like the year Trump got elected. He accepted the award for Stranger Things, and he was yelling about how they were gonna, with love, and like we're gonna love will be hate and all that jazz. And he talked about how he was gonna punch people in the face.
All right, let's wrap it up.
It sort of goes to the idea of doublethink, doesn't it? Another great concept Orwell came up with.
Let's wrap it up.
Mindlessly bleeding out talking points? Now's a great time to dig around for a copy of Animal Farm, give it a read for yourself, and draw your own conclusions.
I think that line is the funniest line in this whole video. He tells us to draw our own conclusions. Did you? Do you really want us to draw our own conclusions? Because after watching your whole video, the conclusion I drew is that you are a simping beta communist. The reason you didn't want to keep talking about Stalin and the problems of the Soviet Revolution and the problems of Soviet Russia is because you secretly like that shit. You secretly drank that Kool-Aid. You don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the problems that communism had in that time period. Even if you're a fan of communism, you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk about, well, here's the big bad government I don't like. You're just trying to find a new snowball to hate. And that's all it is. That's the funniest part about it. You want us to trust your sweet words without looking at what you're actually doing. Saying we need to stand up against propaganda, stand up against the evil people who would want to tell us to hate one another. But your video is hate. That is what your video is. Hate everyone who thinks differently from you. Hate everyone who came before you who has no more power now.
Slander them and make them look like sheep, even though you are hiding under a perfect wool coat.
Okay, well, let's see if he has anything else to say.
And if you want to, let's say...
No, now he's going into his ad or whatever.
And you can see a lucky one that was able to escape before you would make him look at another book.
Wow, he spends the last, what is this, this is at minute 8, all the way to, wow, he spends like 2 minutes on this ad. Anyway, that
their money's worth.
Well, get your money's worth, I guess. All right, so, oh, man. Okay, so here's the thing. I know that a lot of people are going to give me hate for this. They're going to say that I'm just a Republican or I'm a conservative or I just wouldn't agree with them because I'm biased. Okay, here's the thing, guys, and I want this made 100% clear, okay? I don't care about the fact that Trump is the main target in this. I think it's silly and it's a little hypocritical, but that's not my point. It does not matter whether or not I like Trump or hate Trump. What matters is that extra credits presented a bias and avoided in every way possible being objective about this book. They claim to be educational. Let me do something real quick. Let's go to Extra Credits' website.
Are you looking to learn?
Okay, so let's see. About. We're an educational YouTube channel made up of entertainment enthusiasts with backgrounds in game design, television production, literature, and academia. Our team creates short-form animated video essays every week about world history, mythology, and other subjects, all of which may or may not involve a cat. History is the best novel you'll ever read. Join us every Saturday as we explore dramatic adventures in world history. Our myths define us. These are bases of our culture. Join us every other Wednesday as we dive into some of the coolest stories of world mythology. And books take us to places we've never been and inspire our imagination. Join us every other Wednesday as we delve into some of the most courageous tales written throughout time. This is the part that gets me. We are an educational YouTube channel. As people who claim to be educators, as people who claim to represent educational standards and values, as people who want to teach the next generation about truths objectively, you have shown unbelievable bias. And the truth is, we all have a bias. All of us, in some way, shape, or form, have a bias. Be it slight or be it large, we all have a bias. We try to cover it up. I try very hard to be as objective as I can in my videos. Yes, sometimes I bring up my faith. Sometimes I'll bring up my political leanings if I'm ranting. There are times I'll let it slip or sometimes I'll insert it. But I don't try to lie. Like, for example, I've had people accuse me, like whenever I talk about the Crusades, you're just biased because you're a Christian and you want to support the Crusades. No, I'm fully willing to accept that in the Crusades, some Christians did bad things. I have the integrity to say, yeah, Christians did bad things. Muslims did bad things. Both sides did bad things. There's good and bad on both sides of this front, and I'm willing to accept that. I don't like it when you needlessly demonize Christians for it, but then ignore what the Muslims did, and I don't like it when you demonize Christians in general just because you don't like the religion. I admit that. But here, they don't even have the integrity to say, yeah, we're a little biased here, guys, because we're secretly socialists or communists or what have you.
I think there's one says like you misread based.
You misread biased.
Yeah, but still. There were several people calling your takes based.
Well, I appreciate that.
The thing is, we all do have a degree of have biases, and
it's Cat Nico says, aren't sheep literally what the Bible refers to via Jesus being the shepherd and his followers being his flock? Shouldn't it be viewed as a good thing to be called a sheep? Actually, good question. Here's why that's a little funny, and I promise I won't turn this into a like religious rant, but the idea of being called a sheep is because sheep are stupid. Sheep are some of the dumbest animals out there. They have very little intelligence, basically following the leader everywhere. That's why you're called a sheep, because it's like you just follow other people. And you're weak. Sheep are the weakest of animals. If you left a sheep by itself in the middle of the wilderness, it has no means of defending itself. It has no weapons, no teeth, no claws. It cannot defend itself against predators. So a sheep is utterly helpless and utterly stupid. The reason why we are called the sheep and Jesus the shepherd is because we require a shepherd. We require someone to guide us and to help us. We require someone to be our protecting, nurturing guide. That's the role Jesus plays. That's why we're called the sheep. We are the sheep. He is the shepherd. We are helpless without the shepherd. That's the point he was making.
Yes. The thing is, with the political context of the sheep just bleeding over and over again, that's just a reference to them being stupid. With the religious context, it's a reflection of God acts as our shepherd. Like, Jesus is literally called the good shepherd because he takes care of us. He even said himself, like, I have come down not to save the white sheep, but save the lost black sheep.
Right.
Saying, like, he's going out, like, because when a shepherd loses a lamb or a sheep, he will go out, leave the flock to go find it and bring it back. And that was a perfect parable for Jesus to use.
Right.
And not to mention, Jesus himself also refers to himself as a sheep. He is the Lamb of God.
Right.
Because he was supposed to be the sacrifice. But there's a reason. Like, there's two different, like, there's more than one way to use a metaphor.
Right. Exosuit Video Games asks, is that how the book ended? Actually, yes. The book ended with the shocking realization that the pigs were now dressed in human clothes and walking around on 2 feet. And the new line on the side of the barn was, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That was the ending line. That was the chilling ending line. And then Cat Neko asked, so would you call the people who try to protect the masses the guard dogs or herders of the sheep?
There is some people that have tried to do that.
Yeah, there's some prevalence to that. I mean,
like, for example, if you've ever watched the movie American Sniper, like the story made about Chris Kyle, there's a scene where his father says, there are 3 types of people in this world: sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves. I do not raise sheep, and if you become a wolf, I will put you down. And so there are a lot of people that do refer to themselves or think of themselves as sheepdogs as they help the shepherd, they help keep the sheep in line.
Julia, got $1.99 from Frankie DeVilla. Amen, brother. Thank you so much for the $1.99 and amen.
Appreciate it.
Julia says, as an atheist, I do actually believe you do a great job of not letting your religious views bias any of your arguments, while an issue I have with EC is that they tend to bias against religion. Thank you, Julia, very much for saying that. Really appreciate you saying that. I try very hard not to let my religious position get in the way of being objective, and it is true. I think that lots of times extra credits and others like them will use their hatred or dislike of religion to make bias out of theirs. Look, if you believe in God or don't believe in God, that's your own issue. I'm not gonna judge you. That's not my place, and I'm not gonna force you to believe what I believe. That's not my position either. The fact is, though, that we all have a bias. That's whether it be religious, whether it be political, whether it be social, whatever it is. We all have some kind of bias inherent. And when you do an educational video or you do an educational lecture, it is your job to be as far removed from your biases as you can. And sometimes we slip up. I get that. But EC, extra credits, always seems to slip up. And the reason why, if I'm being honest, the reason why is because they are stouting the propaganda that they tell us not to listen to. Don't listen to that propaganda. Listen to my propaganda.
Yep.
There was an anime movie that had a different ending to the book. I have not seen that. But anyway, I think that's about it. Unless, Lark, do you have anything that you want to say?
I think we covered the main point. It's just humorous to me. The first time we saw it this blatant was in Othello.
Yeah.
When they did it, I was just like, really? That makes no sense, and it's just, you're kind of forcing it. And the thing is, it kind of detracts.
Right.
Because if you had just sold us straight or tried to hit both sides along the way, you would have gained the respect. You would have probably gained a number of followers. You would have kept the followers you already had, and you actually would have lived up to your saying like, "Hey, we're educational." But now you're no longer educational. You are now propaganda.
Well, with that said, couple of things before we go. Thank you guys for watching. This was a little experimental to see if. Oh wait, got $5 from the one meme. It's not biased if I'm right and they're bad.
An interesting way of putting it.
An interesting way to put it. Thank you for the $5. Appreciate that. That really means a lot. What I love is every time Extra Credits does this, their channel suffers greatly. Actually, that's the sad part. These videos, the ones like these, tend to do fine. It's when they do openly
typically it was their gaming,
controversial.
And typically on their gaming content that typically gets them in hot water. Like the first one that really messed with them was when they basically just like, oh hey, you played a video game once? You're a Nazi now. And then there was the other one which Raven responded to earlier. I believe it was the first time you responded to.
I didn't respond to the Nazi one just because everyone else had, and it was before I started doing response videos.
Yeah, but like you did the orc one.
I did the orc one. The orcs are bad one. I did respond to that. When they do controversial videos that have to do with other people, like games and stuff, since a lot of people care about games, that's when they get in hot water. But when they do books and history and stuff like that, most people don't care about that, so it doesn't really hurt them at all.
Yeah. The sad thing is you sort of have like the 99 and 1 rule. 99 will just go, oh, okay. But except for the one person that's going to go, wait a minute. I need to look into that.
Anyway, so as I was saying, guys, this video was kind of experimental for us, too, to see if we can do more live response videos like this. This was kind of a very long video. It's been over an hour now since we started. Part of that was because we had some technical issues starting out. But what did you guys think of this video? Should we do more live response videos in the future for videos like this or for things like this where it requires more than me putting together a video? Would you like to see us do this more often? If so, let us know in the comments section down below because we'd be more than happy to do that for you guys. I think we'd have fun doing that.
Oh, poor LeBeau. She doesn't know about it.
How playing games makes you a Nazi. Oh, you haven't seen that, LeBaj? Look up Extra Credits on Nazi video. You'll find it.
Oh, maybe we should do a live response to that.
Dragon, what was the orcs are bad one? I feel I'd enjoy that. Go through my response videos. They did a video about how orcs are secretly racist.
Yeah, basically how it's just like you shouldn't make like video game or story character or like a race morally evil or morally good. And basically they were drawing from the orcs are racist. And it's a very wonky take, and everyone lambasted them for it, and rightfully so.
Hold on, what's this? Raiko's husband and Monster Girl's addicted lover says, before I go, do you trust the Hogwarts Legacy game since they add diversity and got help from the Alphabet Mafia? Everything's going to have some kind of insertion of that. To be perfectly honest, I'm just excited for it because I think it's going to do everything that Harry Potter didn't.
Well, the thing is that I'm excited about it is the main bad guys are apparently a goblin uprising, which means the British imperialists of the 1890s get to crack down on one of their rebelling minorities, which is hilarious to me since, we're going to add diversity and crack down on that minority there, boys.
Well, anyway, back to what we were saying, because we got to wrap this up. We've been running a little bit long. Shark Chaos asks, hey, Raven and Lark, which one of EC's videos is the worst? Either the Nazi video or the orc video. Those two were egregious. And they collectively got the world mad at them. You should look at the To Kill a Mockingbird video. They make some weird assumptions about the characters. Maybe sometime I'll look at that. But anyway, all right. So thank you guys for watching this. Again, let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see us do more of this kind of format. What do you think about extra credits? Do you think that this was worth doing a whole stream and video about? Or do you think that, we just wasted our time here? But I think it was worth it. All right. Well, in that case, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in our next video. And stay tuned, guys. We do have a For Honor Friday stream on Friday. Just a reminder. Take care.
Have a good one, fellas.